season of COVID-19. We're mourning another death this afternoon. Dan Montsitsi, one of the leaders of the 1976 student protests, succumbed to COVID-19 last night. Morobe is a struggle stalwart who played his own role during those times and during our move and a struggle for democracy. Mr. Morobe, so good afternoon to you and thank you for your time. How will you remember Daniel Sechaba Montsitsi?
You know, Sechaba was one of a kind. There can be so many ways to describe him in one sentence, whether you can talk of him as being gentle, as being resolute, as being a committed struggle veteran, revolutionary. Dan Montsitsi was someone you could always depend on. And the one thing is, if I'm to find one word, I would say Dan Montsitsi was a good man. And this to us, and to me in particular, who's known him for many years, is a tremendous loss. Because as you would have seen recently around June 16, he was a healthy, able person engaging on issues. And COVID just came and took him away. So unexpectedly.
Must be very, very difficult for you, sir, and this period has been so difficult for so many people. Can you remember, can you tell us what he was like in 1976, what he was like then? It's so long ago now, 45 years ago. As someone who was a leader in that time, he must have had something. He must have had an ability. He must have been able to get people to follow him. He must have been able to arrange, organize, and coordinate.
Oh, absolutely. When I got to know him, it was in the context of us being members of the South African student movement. And he was from the high school in Sikanantwane, high school in Soweto. And there we also had a very vibrant and active branch of the student movement. And Dan was amongst, in fact, the leading lights in that era. And hence, when we went on the march on June 1676, he would have been one of those who led the component of the march that came from that area, leading it all the way up to Orlando West. And Dan was there in front leading. But I think Dan, more than anything else, many people would know him as a counselor. Someone was always available to give advice, even in those early years. My closeness and friendship to him, I suppose, was amongst other things attracted by that ability to get insights, to get advice, to have an engagement with someone who always gave you his advice without, in fact, wanting anything in return.
What he was doing, what you were doing with him, was incredibly dangerous. He must have been very brave.
Well, we were young. We were young, and we had nothing to lose, and we were actually also seized by very strong commitment and belief in our role as young people in championing the struggle for the improvement of our conditions. At that point, it was in the context of fighting the bond education system. And once we had that belief and we had those insights influenced by, in fact, none other than the Black consciousness movement, people like Steve Biko, Pani Pichana, Seth Cooper, you name them, who came from the Black Parents Convention, BPC, and SASO, we actually got those depth of our political consciousness, in fact, sharpened in those early years. So we had conviction about what we're doing, and I think fear tended to be more secondary to us.
So many people from that time are now passing on. It's a function of COVID. It's a function of age in some cases. Are we remembering what happened then properly? Are we doing proper commemorations in our society, do you think?
Well, I would consider that to be a work in progress. I think we can do better, especially with regard to events surrounding like June 16, 1976. I'm aware and conscious of the fact that times move and different imperatives face people at different times. But the overarching view from my point of view is that I think there needs to be a way in which these events are structured and used, especially for development, to build communities and to build, in fact, the intergenerational relationships that are so important for making sure that those who are born today going forward will then be bequeathed a history that is full of learnings and teachings that will enable them to deal with their current situation much more effectively and perhaps even better than we did.
Murphy Morobe, sir, I really appreciate the time today. Thank you very much indeed. Well.